Hello and welcome to 100 Yards of Football, Sports Talk Radio. I'm your producer, Jeremiah Long, and joining me to talk about Levi Onwuzurike, who is the DT out of the University of Washington, is the man himself, Mr. Logan Landers. How's it going, Mr. Landers?
Hey, what's going on, Jeremiah? Always great to be on the show talking some football with you. As always, hey, I'm ready to talk about Levi Onwuzurike. Heck of a last name. We might fumble it a little bit, but hey, don't worry. It's a little early for us here. We're still trying to shake off the cobwebs of early morning show, but we got it, though. I'm ready to talk about this guy. He is dynamic.
Absolutely. Well, we may fumble Mr. Onwuzurike's name, but we know he won't fumble, so let's let him do his thing. At this point, Mr. Logan Landers, tell us exactly what you think is going to happen with Mr. Onwuzurike's draft profile, and what are the world-famous 3 teams that you've picked that you feel like he'd be great?
Well, Jeremiah, I'm going to kick things off here with some stats this young man's produced over his few seasons for the Washington Huskies. And he came in 2017 as a freshman, 16 tackles, 11 of those were solos, and 2 sacks as well. So his freshman season, like I said, usually freshmen don't play too much on the defensive side of the ball unless you're an absolute stud. But hey, he's able to go in there and get those 2 sacks, get a couple of tackles, and really have a really productive freshman season. But where he really kind of kicked things off was his sophomore year. That's where he really kind of put his name out there. It was like, okay, look, he had a really good freshman season. Let's see if he can back it up for his sophomore year. So in the sophomore season, he was able to play a little bit more, got 34 tackles, 16 of those were solo, and he also got 3 sacks as well. So as you can see, he's just building and building. He's getting better and better. But what I really like about him was this 2019 season. That's where he was really put his claim to his name and was like, look, you better watch out for this guy. So in 2019, 45 tackles, 20 of those were solo tackles. But what I really enjoyed was the 2 sacks as well. So in total, he had 7 sacks in total as his career for the Washington Huskies. So overall, you can just say this guy was very consistent, very dynamic. And anytime he was on the field, you were pretty much guaranteed he was going to get a bunch of tackles and he's going to get a couple of sacks. So we'll have to see if he can translate that into the NFL. Now he did have some hand surgery, which might have lingered him a little bit, but hey, I think he should be fine coming into this draft. That's not going to be too big of an issue. He can always do some workouts, get that hamstring back to where it needs to be. And I think he's going to be even better in the NFL. So some things that I enjoy watching about this young man is I don't think he's going to be the top defensive tackle taken. There are a few really good names out there, but he might be one that you need to look out for, I believe. There are really a lot of defensive tackles. But this guy, he is really good. So I think that I like his strength. His strength is really good. He's able to get those tackles, able to knock those guys down, move them out the way, and get tackles, whether it's on the running back or get a sack or 2 on the quarterback. He does need to improve his pass rush just a little bit because even though, like I said, he did get a couple of sacks in college, he does need to get a few more in the NFL if he wants to keep a job around. So I think that once he gets some strength training in, and once he just kind of gets used to the NFL, that NFL lifestyle, I think he should be fine. Once he just gets a little bit more strength around him, once he gets a good coach, and once he learns, like, all right, look, this is how you need to do it. This is some tips and tricks that they've learned over the years in the NFL that he might not have known about in Washington. Because, I mean, Washington, they are a really good school, but they're not the powerhouses that you think of. You know, they're not the SEC schools, the ACC schools. They're kind of not a lower tier, I'm not going to say, but they're not one of the teams you think of and look like, okay, look, these guys are going to be, coming out with 5-star blue chip athletes, but they do have they're really solid players, and that's what we see here with Levi, a really good player that was with the Huskies, and he's now going to the NFL. So I do think that he can improve on that. I mean, as you can see in the picture that we got here, he is a pretty good frame. He does have a good height and weight to him. He's looking good, I think. So, I mean, I think that, he is 6'2", 6'2", 6'3" on a good day, around 290. So that's pretty solid. We'll have to see if he's going to, maybe trim down or if he might maintain that weight. You never know. But either way, we've seen guys, even get bigger in the NFL at the defensive tackle position. You're not too sure how these guys are going to project. It really just depends on what the once the defensive coordinator really wants you to do. If he wants you to bulk up, you can bulk up. If you want to slim down a little bit, you can do that too. And I think that if Levi is, able to go into the NFL and really just listen to the coaches, learn the training, listen to the training staff, get that hand back, the strength, and also just be around the camaraderie of the NFL with all the new players you're going to be around, because these are going to be fresh faces, and he's going to be another one. Don't go into the NFL with the bug eyes and get the deer in the headlights type of look. And I think he should be fine. I think he's a great young man, and he's going to do great things in the NFL. One thing that I really think that really helped his draft stock was his performance at the Senior Bowl. He didn't do too much in 2020. He sat out, but even though he was able to go into the Senior Bowl, he was able to have a really good day or so there. And that's where teams and scouts were really like, okay, this guy, while he didn't have amazing, eye-popping numbers at Washington, just I think seeing those few, those snaps and stuff like that at the Senior Bowl, that was able to really help him out. So I think that with that performance, he boosted his draft stock tremendously, I believe. So a few things that I think that he might improve on is just, like I said, his pass rush. It's right there. He needs a little bit of help with that, though. But he's really good at tackling. That's why I think he really kind of shines his ability to get tackles off and really, just drag whoever's going at him, drag him down, don't get him too many yards. And I think that's going to help him in the NFL. That's one of his keys. And like you said in the intro, Jeremiah, I got my 3 teams who this young man might be headed to.
Yes,
so the first team I've got is a guy that is a team that one of the founders of 100 Football is a big fan of. And if he's watching this right now, I know he's going to love me even more. The Dallas Cowboys. Dallas Cowboys do need a little bit of help at that defensive line position. And I think that if Levi is able to head over there and really have a solid season for them boys with the Dallas Cowboys, I know Vince Turner would be happy about it, but I know all the Cowboys fans who are tremendous fans, by the way, really good fans, really hardcore, love their team. They love this guy too. I think he's going to be a hard worker, and he's going to look good with a star on his jersey and on his helmet. So the second team I have him headed to is the Denver Broncos. Now the Broncos, we already know about Von Miller. He's getting up there in age, but what better way than to pass down the legacy, of a really good pass rusher that he can learn a lot from than with the Von Miller with the Denver Broncos. I think that'd be a really good fit, kind of a mentor, a mentee type of deal. I think that would be a tremendous fit if he was able to go to the Broncos, learn from Von Miller, learn how to really get to the quarterback. And who knows if he's able to get that mentoring, that it might change his whole trajectory. It might make him less of a tackler, more of a pass rusher. It might get him 5-10 sacks a season, maybe even more. We know Von Miller is great at getting to the quarterback. So I think that if he was able to go there, that would be a great fit as well for Levi. He'd be really good in that system, and I'd be interested to see if he's able to head to the Broncos. But the third team I have him going to is the Seattle Seahawks. Now, the Seahawks, they're kind of in a weird spot right now. You don't know if they're going to be buying or selling. You don't know if Russell Wilson, they really need to get the offensive line fixed first and foremost, but they also need to get a really good defensive tackle. And I think that if you were able to get help on the interior with Levi Onwuzurike, then that would be a tremendous fit for them. He looked great in that blue and teal, that blue and neon green. He looked really good in that too. He'd have a lot of color to him. So I do think that any of those teams, whether it's the Cowboys, the Broncos, or the Seahawks, if you get this guy, you're going to get a really good defensive tackle. He's going to need a little bit of polishing, though. He's not going to be, coming into this just absolutely blowing people's minds. But once you get a few training reps within him, and once you really kind of work with him a little bit, just be patient, I think he could develop into a really good defensive tackle in the league as long as you just give him some time, put some pieces around him that help him out, help him grow. I do think that he would be a really good fit for any of the 3 teams I listed. And I think he'd have a really good career in the NFL as long as he's able to put in his work. And as long as he can stay consistent and just not fall off any, I think he'd be fine.
That is what's up. Well, Mr. Onwuzurike, so like we were talking about fumbling earlier, but he's the one who's going to cause these fumbles, right?
There you go.
His hands in there.
Perfect.
And so, we'd love to see him go to the Dallas Cowboys, of course, because the founder of our network is a huge Dallas Cowboys fan, and he is always looking to build that team up further and further because, as he would say, it's America's team. Now, I would love to see him go to the Seahawks because, again, I think that he would look great in those colors. And also it would give him a chance to really get, on the ground there with a team, like you said, they need to work on their offense, but, they need to be building up everything,
Right.
So with that, what is your final word for Mr. Levi Onwuzurike?
Yeah, so final thoughts on this young man. Like I said, he's not a 5-star blue chip type of athlete. You're not going to get a guy who's just been absolutely killing it in college. You're getting someone who had a pretty solid career. for the Washington Huskies. You're a good guy, like I said, who needs some polishing a little bit, who needs some time and some snap counts. You need him to be on the field and just learning. And that's what I think. Just don't rush this guy. Don't put a whole lot of pressure on him in the opening. Just let him grow. Just let him grow in the NFL. And whatever system he heads to, whether it's the 3 teams I listed or whether it's a different team, just be sure, just make sure that he's ready. And I think that as long as he's training hard, studying the playbook, just getting those teammates better, I think he could be a really good defensive tackle for many years to come. As long as you're just patient with him and you can get him in a good system, he could be really good for a lot of years in the NFL. But overall, I think this is going to be a good pickup for any team that gets him. And he could potentially be one of those kind of sleeper picks we always look at as a guy that you might not look at going into this draft thinking, oh, he went to Washington. He's not that big of a deal. He went from Alabama or nobody. But no, you might look back and this guy might be a really good player for years to come. He might be a Hall of Famer. You never know. We'll just have to see how he plays out in the NFL and how much better he gets because he's already really good at Washington. And whatever team he has to in the NFL, he's going to get even better.
Absolutely. Well, for everybody watching on YouTube, Twitch, or Facebook, we just want to say thank you. And we really appreciate that you've subscribed to our channel and followed. And over on Twitch, we really love all the comments that you send us. And if you are not, and if you love to listen to podcasts, then please jump over and listen to our podcast, which is 100 Yards of Football. You can check it out over at Spotify. And that's what it looks like. You've got our green banner in the background with our football at the 50-yard line ready to go. We've got our podcast that comes out daily there. And if you go over to Apple Podcast, same deal. We've got the same podcast there. So wherever you listen to podcasts, you can find us. Just look at 100 Yards of Football, and we will pop right in there, and we can start giving you daily doses of some of the absolute best football information that you can get anywhere, including draft profiles, entire team profiles, and what we think is going to happen in the games coming up, because there's going to be games starting to play not too long. And then finally, we'll bring you some incredible interviews. If you ever tune into our evening shows on Monday, which usually start around 7 p.m., then you're about to see some of the most amazing coaches come through, some of the most amazing former players, some classic high school players. We get these groups of players from places like Atlantic, down in Florida, and these are just some great football players getting together, talking about the old days, and really just going in on everything that made football great for them in their careers. And many of these players, even though we're talking about high school, many of these players went on to play in the NFL, so that will give their perspective on what it was like from high school all the way through college into an NFL career. So that's something I really love about our show. So for our entire group here, I am Jeremiah Long, the producer, and you've been joining Mr. Logan Landers, who brings us every week the most amazing draft profiles. And just wait to see what we have in store coming up next, because Logan's got some great stuff up his sleeve. So stay with us, and we're about to show you yet another amazing draft profile here in just a moment. Until then, see you then.